Hi everyone, I'm Jong Yu from YouTube channel Yuzhongwan TV again. And it has been a while since I load up my last video regarding some of the sample actuarial models to validate assumptions or parameters when you work on the IFRS17 measurement model. And probably from beginning. This is the main reason why I started my YouTube channel to talk about the IFRS 17 results. Right now, it is already started. January 1st, 2023 is the implementation date. And I'm pretty sure all of you who has worked on this project uh, is now ready to have all the measurement results from the transition and all the way up to like last year, December 31st, year 2022. And that's how you can, produce the first report, even for the, you know, first quarter financial statement and comparative financial statement. And and I was quite reluctant for more than a month. Is that because I thought there are so many things that I wanna talk about before I show the actual you know like IFRS 17 measurement models. But right now it looks quite urgent for any, let's say, industry auditors or actuarial people who has participated in the project or internal appointed actuary team is do the peer review. And I heard about some news that some people are like preparing how they can do validate the results based on the, let's say, previous way. But I, or also I already stressed that this is the actuarial paradigm shift. You must not use so-called existing, deterministic or closed set equation-based calculation. Probably I would imagine that some of you who is gonna do the, validation, probably you can download some of the, each individual contract level samples, and you're going to follow the deterministic calculations to see if that calculation is correct or not. But that's not probably how you should do the validation itself. And that's based on the total misunderstanding of the, standard itself. And today I'm gonna talk about, a measurement model and how I can do apply the initial measurement on the one of the group of contract, and probably it's going to be the series of videos to talk about the sample actuarial models. And I'll say it is not absolute solution. It is just the one of the samples, and even there, uh, after I show you how I can build up the so-called actuarial model, structure, and all the detailed component could be like, many ways. You can develop your own methodology, but they should be based on some of the, experiences, and you have to follow in terms of actuarial, let's say, standard. And that, don't worry, that has been developed like for more than 20 years, especially in starting from UK and Canada or Australia, New Zealand, and all like countries in Europe. This is going to be probably, it was like more than 20 years of experience focusing on Solvency II internal models to capture the how they can satisfy the IFRS, the Solvency II requirements. In Europe, that started probably January 1st, 2016. And we are now apply the Korean version of like ICS. It turns into ICS. We call it KICS. And that's going to be effective at the same time for IFRS 17. And so you have to gain some of the knowledge or some of the experience from those countries, what they have done previously. And you can find some of the knowledge from the website right now. I can show you how I build up based on my own personal experience, and you can have a pretty good idea how those like probabilistic or stochastic actuarial models works in compliance in line with the standards in IFRS 17. So it's not like only solution, and you can get your own after you acquire the knowledge and some of the like skill set. And I would like to just briefly show you the basic structure of actuarial models for you to be able to use for validating the measurement results. I would like to start with the Excel spreadsheet. And you remember in the standards there is a subsection. The subtitle says disclosure requirement. And as I recall, back in 1998, sometime when I started my actuarial like career in one of the like Canadian company, which is a like originally UK company, but there is the branch office in Canada. That's for PNC. And I remember for the year-end financial statement, there are a lot of like footnote or explanations how I did my work to come up with like some of the values in the financial statement. And then separately, I was quite busy preparing so-called actuaries report. It is a separate, very thick, booklet that we have to submit it to the, like whatever the like the users of financial statement. And there, even all the historical data I have to like present it. And when I read through the disclosure requirement in IFRS 17 standard, it is even more contents in it, including the historical data for like premium or claims and all the other expense or all the details, and also like so-called like qualitative or actuarial judgment that you have used. And like it's a lot of contents. So I'm not sure you guys are like all ready to satisfy the disclosure requirement. But right now, if I were given the opportunity to do the peer review, the actuarial, let's say, validation, to I mean probably I work with the auditors, and then like all the values in the financial statement, but I probably would focus on the actuarial models, how I can like come up with those values, which is called the estimate in terms of actuarial model output. And in the disclosure, if you look at the number 100 and 101, you have to disclose these two exhibits. It is very clear, okay? And you must not get away from it, okay? And virtually, even though I have to, like talk about a lot more here, I would like to just, focus on the actual, let's say, practical work starting from these two exhibits. And in the standards, the all the measurement, let's say, level that you can present the values in the financial statement is the group of contract. So whatever whatever like amount of, like, let's say, policies you have, like a million, or like hundreds of, like thousands of, like all individual contract, it doesn't really matter. You have to first, like, classify the all different portfolios based on similar risk and manage it together. And then each portfolio, you have to do the onerous test to come up with the group of contract. I know probably some of the, like, life insurance companies, like, you just calculate individual contract or individual coverage level. You just, aggregate it. That's what we have been doing it. In terms of actuarial, like paradigm shift, you should do it on a level of group of contract. How are you going to do that? You first select out of those contract who actually, issued at the same time. Probably is going to be the monthly basis, or if it gets, more sophisticated, you're going to do it on a daily basis. But for the probably, initial time, you're going to do it on a batch job on a monthly basis. So all the, let's say, some of the, like set of contract that coming in same month, and you have to do the onerous test. So meaning that you have to, like, let's say, the, you know you have to estimate in, for all the building blocks component all the way up to the contract boundary, and you see, is there, like, the profitability level information. That is so-called in standards, is it like fulfillment cash flow is a net inflow or net outflow, depending on that. After you finalize and make a conclusion on that, this set of contract could be the one group of contract based on the onerous test. Right now, you mark it as a group of contract, and you're going to keep it that way all the way up to the contract boundary after all the contract are going to be expired. Okay, and another issue is that starting, let's say, from January 1st 2023, year 2023, and all the previous, let's say, business in force, you have to, do the transfer, like, by the end of December 31st, 2022, and you have to get ready. So I will call that the transition. And in the, like, standards, you can use the, let's say, like, modified retrospective or full retrospective. Here, I used full retrospective approach. And then in the exhibit, it says, like, opening balance for each building blocks. And here is a liability for remaining coverage, which is NRC, and liability for incurred claims, and insurance liability, and so on. So it is exactly the same as, like, illustrative examples in the booklet. And here, I would like to say that in this figure, which is, yellow, this is the onerous test results. Like, like all the building blocks values at the initial recognition time. And separately, I'll put it this way. And where these all the values come from. And, there is a, like, fact pattern, but I would like to, like just, give a little bit more detailed explanation when I get along. And then let's assume that I have the data for the, like first claim outgo. So I would just start with the, like cash outflows first, especially for the, like claim payment. It doesn't matter which coverage, and I put a, like onerous test at the initial, like recognition time. I would assume that that's the second quarter 2013 it started. And I group, like, the specific, like 4 quarters. And then I had a conclusion that the contract boundary would expand to much further down to 20. Yeah, I mean, I can show it later, but here all the way down to, like, at the end of third quarter 2029. That's the, end of the contract boundary for now. And I would like to show you how I can do the initial onerous test. And then here is a building block 1 for the, like, future cash, like, outflow, which is a claim outgo. Expense is separate, right? And starting point is I was given this historical data. Oh, I can put it here. And this is, by accident quarter. And this is, like difference between the calendar quarter. So it'll be the development quarter. And I have the data all the way up to, like, the year end 2021. And that's where, I have all the data. But unfortunately, like, for some reason, I don't know the details, but, I assume that for call the LIC claim, I just get the, data only up to, like year end 2017. The reason is that the data after this, this time, it was just given on a only calendar year basis. I don't have any accident year, based data. It's all aggregated for some reason. And I did some of the, like database work to come up with the how I can decompose calendar year losses into accident year and development year losses. That's actually what I was able to do it. But, you can just decompose it based on this historical data, which has all the information that I need, and you can come up with the development factor or age factor, so that I was able to decompose calendar year losses into, like accident year and development year, two-dimensional, like space. But in that case, I wouldn't get much more any loss development values data or something. So I decided make an actual judgment. Okay, I'm gonna use data starting from second quarter 2013 all the way up to fourth quarter 2017, and this is the data given. And initial recognition is probably 23rd second quarter. That's what I assume. That is based on my actual judgment, and I'm gonna do the initial, like measurement, okay? And that's the that aims at transferring all the, like initial measurement results and all the way down to, like, year end 2021. And how am I going to do that for the claims? And let's say here some of the people might, like already know the bootstrapping sampling. And in a stochastic modeling, usually you are given this set of data. And it really depends on how our insurance contract works. And contract obligation says, whenever you have, let's say, financial loss arising from the insured event, I'm going to cover it. And that should be, like effective, let's say, policy effective period. That's why we called it, like any insured event occurrence base. So that's why you should know from the database when those claims occurred in specific, like time period. This is quarterly basis. And then until the claims are all settled down, how much all the, like partial payment or whatever lump sum payment develops all the way up to the ultimate. And in order to see that, you have to come up with, this actuarial framework, which you're already familiar with when you do, like IBNR estimation. And I'm gonna go, like fast, like you guys are already very well aware of it. And I get the link ratio or age to age factor. This is a, like very, let's say, fixed amount of benefit when it occurs, and probably there is no partial payment. There is a lump sum payment unless you have some of the, like you don't have any issues. So you can have it like it's like a 1 year for 4 quarters, and second year, and you get a lot less development here. But some things are like developed, but it was quite not a lot. And obviously in the first year, especially like within like third quarter, it is significantly like high age to age factor. And one more thing is that here the COVID-19 is not in this, right? Well, probably COVID-19 epidemic starts like probably fourth quarter 2018. So this data doesn't include any COVID-19 effect. And based on this, I came up with the like selected loss development factor. And if I just like simply, let's say, draw the this this is like, let's say, whenever it occurs, this shows the first quarter development pattern. If you look at the pattern itself, yeah, it's the same development period, right? But the earlier it looks, like a very out of range, right? And then also, if I make it bigger, it tends to, like decrease down towards the more recent, like excellent quarters. Why is that? You have to find out why. You have to look at the, like your own company's like claim procedure. What's the philosophy of the or policy that your claim majors put it in, and that is obviously like decreasing down. So I finally decided that make an actual judgment to include only 7. So for example, instead of including all those, I just have all the way just 7. Oh, this is a, yeah, only this includes 7, and I check the basic chain letter, which is a volume weighted average. That's the one that I have selected. So this selection is very important, because whatever the stochastic like reserving model works, The starting point is your judgment, how you can come up with the, like initial LDF. It's even very important when you do the IBNR estimation, but it is also very important when you, like do the stochastic like simulation, because when you select the, age to age factor, that's going to be the loss development factor. And then from there, as I, like showed you in the one of the previous video, that shows the like effect of increasing claim ratio, loss ratio, and also the outstanding the case outstanding adequacy change, how that's going to affect the our IBNR estimation. And from there, I already showed you how you can build up the like the loss development triangle based on the earned premium and given like payment pattern or reported pattern, so you can create the pseudo historical triangle based on that, right? And here is the same story. You are given historical development, paid loss development, the paid loss development triangle, and once you come up with the loss development factor, and you can create so-called pseudo paid loss triangle. Here I would say fitted incremental paid loss. And with the data, I create the incremental paid loss, historical triangle. And based on this loss development factor, I have fitted the pseudo incremental paid loss triangle. And that's where we can derive the residuals. And right now, and you have to look at, for example, how these residuals are distributed. For example, let's say here you can find, like something like this. Or you can choose, whatever. You can also have something like this. The reason is that I would like to, like apply the random sampling against this residual. And this is a pretty much, unscaled residual. It's going to be very different from the accident year and development period and, like paid loss amount itself. So I standardize to make it look like the IID distributed. So identically and independently distributed residual samples that I have created. This is actually originally like comes from the like Thomas Mack, which is a German actuary who used to work in the Munich Re, and that's probably the end of 1970s. And his first paper says that you know like I would like to derive some of the like standard errors from my own selection of LDF. I would say that that would be the like parameter like uncertainty or like estimation error in the future that I would like to say in terms of statistics. But he suggests that those residuals, and he came up with his own like standard error based on his own selection. That's the starting point for the stochastic reserving idea. And ever since then, stochastic model has been built out of it. And based on this, residuals, I came up with the, like so-called the the more standardized, and you see it, there's some like for the different residuals, but there is, I call it Pearson chi-square residuals that you have created. So it's gonna change if you change the LDF selection, age to age factor selection, it's gonna change the distribution of residual. But whatever residual distribution you have to apply the like standardization based on Pearson or any other method to come up with, you want to apply that random sampling with replacement, which is called bootstrapping, to create historical pseudo triangle data samples, whatever number, like, that you want. And then using some of the, like random functions here, and out of this accident year and development year frame structure, you can have a, like resampling based on that, like whatever. And then you can calculate reversely out of, let's say, once you run the scenario, each scenario is going to be like, calculated backwards to come up with the pseudo historical triangle. And you would have, like all the different historical triangles. That's what I would say it is, historical triangle samples. And based on that, you're going to do the future prediction of it. Yeah, this is just, like whatever the, like you create the, let's say, simulate the historical triangle, and then just, like all including volume weighted average LDF is going to be like changing accordingly, right? And based on that, you just, apply that to see the future prediction. And that doesn't have a process variance. I would say forecasting error. It doesn't have it, but I just, show you very illustrative fashion. And here I come up with the all, like, incremental payloads samples. So here I set up the Visual Basic to do the scenarios for 1,000 times, because it is a very simple, like the fixed amount of benefit. So 1,000 probably would be enough. But for the some of the like automobile or like a non-life PNC side, I would suggest like 10,000 or 50,000, even 100,000 simulations. It doesn't take that long. I mean, this is Excel based, but when you program it and make the system, it's going to be a lot faster. It gets faster in the near future, right? So anyway, those things is only I try to create the historical data samples, because even though our internal data is big, but when I decompose it into the accident year and development, accident quarter and development quarter basis, it's only one set. And out of Thomas Max idea, I can create the residuals, and after I standardize it and I run like bootstrapping sampling to create 1,000 different pseudo historical triangles. And from there, the reason why I'm doing that, I try to get an estimate of parameters. So when you think about the full Bayesian approach, and there is a prior distribution, so you're gonna predict the future next 1 year or second year, third year prediction based on like all the historical data, and you have a prior distribution, meaning that it's kind of a distribution of parameters. And this is a very simple, like coverage. So even though I set it up normal or gamma distribution, here I'll show you the normal distribution selection. You can choose gamma or any other distribution depending on how the empirical distribution looks like. But this one is normal. And in order to, let's say, first estimate the parameters that I would use is that mu and sigma. And here I use so-called, let's say, maximum likelihood estimation. So But in order to do that, I need historical data, and using sampling, I created pseudo historical triangle, right? 1,000 different like historical data. Out of there, for each accident quarter, or it says accident year, but accident quarter, I have normal distribution mu and sigma all the way up to estimate, all the way up to 27 fourth quarter. And this is all the based on the historical data. And out of there, I apply some of the adjustment for after that, right? After 2017, like fourth quarter, this is 2018 first quarter, starting from it. And because, like I need to generate the future cash outflows all the way up to 2029 third quarter, I need to get estimate of future, like mu and sigma. So here, I would say, I just assume that the COVID-19 has an effect starting from like 2019 all the way up to like year in 2022. And it might change, but it depends on your actual judgment. And if I don't apply the COVID-19 effect, and how does it look like? And based on that, here, because I don't have any data, and those parameters that I estimate from the historical sample data set, I just apply the adjustment on the trend vector and scale. Scale means that how much exposure you have. Is it like increasing or decreasing or something like that? Like scale of exposures that you are exposed, right? And then the COVID-19, if it doesn't have an effect on it, it's just the same, right? And there, I come up with the, like the estimate, the parameter estimate after 2017 and all the way up to like 2029 third quarter. The reason why I'm doing that is I would like to, like predict the future, like ultimate losses starting from 2018 first quarter all the way up to 2029 third quarter. So because that's why it is the, let's say, I'm trying to measure the insurance contract and initial recognition, and I need all the parameters that I do, like estimate it, and I apply this, like selected U and sigma, right, starting from the initial recognition, 2013 second quarter, and all the way up to 2029 third quarter. That's where I'm doing this job, right? Starting from here, and you can see the way how I do it is that I first the generate the scenarios for the ultimate claim distribution for each different accident quarters. Out of this estimated parameters, okay? So it depending on, like the selection. And you can have here, I use the, like Monte Carlo. When I say that, here I use, let's say, selection is normal, and I would use the mu and sigma estimate, and I put it in a, like inverse function. That's how I do the very simple Monte Carlo simulation to generate the distribution of future ultimate claims. So that is why I need to do all the previous work done, and here is finally I generate the like the ultimate loss distribution based on the scenario. But here, when you see it, all the way down to 27 fourth quarter, I have the historical data, and then I do apply the bootstrap sampling to get to the, like estimate of mu sigma. And after that, I have a, like this one, right? 2018 first quarter. So here inverse function is linked with the, different fields. And when I run it 1,000 times using Visual Basic, and I come up with the, like this distribution, it looks like, just a value, but when you hit it, it's gonna create a whole lot different, like distribution. And I just draw the picture like this. Oh, this one, I put it here. No COVID-19 effect. It's the same. If I run it, and it's gonna give me the, like graph of the future, like ultimate loss. It doesn't take that long, only 12 seconds. And then here it's done, right? And here, look at it is, like very much upward trend. And it means that here, even though down there I calculated on a future calendar year basis to apply the discount, and here, like I just, draw this ultimate like claim like columns. You can see this area. But when I apply the, let's say, COVID-19 results, so you say the, here a lot like less exposure, so you can have a, like smaller claim amount, and the business itself is, like going down a lot because, not many people are, let's say, to buy the new contracts, or they don't want to, maintain the contract due to the COVID-19. That's how I do apply the actuarial judgment like this. And if I run it again, it's gonna, produce the, like, different results. It doesn't take that long. Okay, here we go. And you can see after I apply the, like COVID-19 results, well, at the initial recognition, yeah, because, I have all the informations. So I apply that like this. And for example, cash here, building block one, the LRC claims, meaning that at the initial recognition, 2017, like third quarter, it's just, initial recognition. So all is, like liability for remaining coverage claims. That's how I get for the building block one. And you can see this, whole, like all the ultimate claims, the distribution. And you remember when I run the, bootstrapping, each and every the scenario, I could have, like all including year, like volume weighted average. Right? You can change it, whatever, 7 or 8. It depends on your actual judgment, and you have to do the thorough, analysis out of it. I saved it all the way down to 1,000. Sorry. Okay. So each development quarter, I save it out of, 1,000, let's say, sampling. I saved it, and once I have the, ultimate claims there, I randomly select LDF. And when I just run the 1,000 times, and it's just randomly select the, LDF out of those saved LDF, you apply it, right? So it means that this ultimate losses is now like, reversely calculated backwards, and how much, like, in terms of cumulative basis, how much it, paid out for each development years. That is also random factors to, come up with the like process variance or the, like forecasting error. And if I do it, and you can, like create the incremental paid losses for 1,000 different scenarios, and you gather on a, like calendar year basis, and you apply the discount. And that's how I get the building block one. And also after I apply the discount, and you can get the building block two. And this one is, like separately I just showed you, but like that is a little bit different story to come up with the risk adjustment. But for today's video, I just showed you how I can come up with the, future cash outflow, which is a claim outgo in terms of, building block one. And also I apply the discount rate to come up with the building block two. That is adjusted amount reflecting the, time value of the money and financial risk based on the unbiased estimate. So when I say unbiased means that you have 1,000 different, scenarios, and you can just get the so-called, sample mean is the building block one, and risk adjustment is a separate, like story how you can come up with. But the today's session, I just showed you how I can build a sample model to come up with the building block one, building block two, and that number I have to aggregate into this table for disclosure. So those numbers coming from here, and initial opening balance, and this is the initial recognition. And I have a fulfillment cash flow is, negative value means, like which is a net inflow. So this is a non-onerous group of contract. And at the initial recognition, that turns into, positive numbers, and that is the initial recognition time CSM. And that is the onerous test. And I made a conclusion that, this set of like contract, which is like, 60 or 70 different like contract, or maybe more than that, you can like make an assumption there. But I did onerous test to conclude that this set of contract is going to be one group of contract that I'm going to measure it subsequently. And this is the at initial recognition, like, results for the like my measurement. And I just showed you how I can get the, future cash outflow estimate. But, like next video, I'm gonna show you the how I can come up with the like cash inflows, which is a premium side as well. I apply the same, bootstrapping, but here in initial recognition and in the exhibit 100 and 101, now you're here, especially for exhibit 101, and this number is, that you should to come up with, but I'm going to show you the other cash flows in the next video. Yeah, it takes a little bit longer than I expected, and the way how I show you is Excel based, because that's very visual, that you can easily understand it. And yeah, I will show you another part of the actuarial validation model based on the IFRS 17 standard in the next video. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.